When ruthless CEO Damien Wolf marries shy Evelyn Sinclair to acquire her father's tech company, he thinks he's getting a meek wife who won't interfere with his plans. But Evelyn has secrets of her own, and when she reveals her true brilliant self, Damien must decide what matters more, the business deal he came for or the unexpected love he never saw coming. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Damien Wolf stood at the window of his penthouse office, looking down at the city that he practically owned. At 35, he had built Wolf Industries into one of the most powerful companies in the country. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his custom suit fit his tall frame like armor, and his cold blue eyes missed nothing. Nothing except, perhaps, what actually mattered in life. "The Sinclair merger documents are ready for your signature," his assistant said from the doorway. Damien nodded without turning around. "And the other arrangement?" "Everything is set for next month. Mr. Sinclair has agreed to all terms regarding his daughter." A smile that held no warmth crossed Damien's face. Perfect. Marriage. A concept Damien had successfully avoided his entire adult life. But business was business, and the Sinclair family owned the technology patents he needed. Old Man Sinclair was surprisingly traditional and had made it clear he wanted his company to stay in the family. The solution was simple: marry the daughter, get the company. Damien had only met Evelyn Sinclair twice, both times at charity events where she had blended into the background. Plain, quiet, with those oversized glasses and shapeless clothes, she was exactly what he wanted: a wife who wouldn't interfere with his life or his work. Someone who would sign the papers, appear at required events, and otherwise stay out of his way. Across town, in a cozy apartment that would fit into Damien's office 10 times over, Evelyn Sinclair removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. At 28, she had spent the last 5 years working behind the scenes at her father's company, developing the very technology that Damien Wolf was so desperate to get his hands on. "You don't have to go through with this," her best friend Rachel said, sitting across from her at the small kitchen table. "Tell your father you won't be sold off like some medieval princess." Evelyn smiled sadly. "It's not that simple. Dad's health is getting worse. This merger will secure the company's future and the medical care he needs." She put her glasses back, on the large frames hiding her striking hazel eyes. "Besides, I have a plan." Rachel leaned forward. "What kind of plan?" "Damien Wolf thinks he's getting a mousy little wife who won't cause any trouble. He hasn't bothered to get to know me at all. Not the real me. He just sees what I've let him see." "And what happens when he finds out he's wrong?" Evelyn's smile turned mischievous. "That's the interesting part. I want to know if he can see past his own prejudice. If he can't," she shrugged, "then I'll know exactly what kind of man I'm dealing with, and I'll plan accordingly." The wedding was a small affair despite the wealth of both families. Damien had insisted on keeping it private, with only a handful of witnesses at the courthouse, followed by a small reception at his penthouse. Evelyn arrived wearing a simple white dress, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, her face nearly bare of makeup. Her father, Thomas Sinclair, thin and pale from his illness but standing proud, walked her down the aisle. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "Thank you for understanding," she whispered back. They both knew she meant the plan she had confided in him just days earlier. Her father squeezed her hand. "He's a fool if he can't see your worth. Make him work for it." The ceremony was brief, clinical almost. Damien barely looked at her as they exchanged vows. His voice was strong and clear, but empty of emotion. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Damien placed a chaste kiss on her cheek, clearly just going through the motions. At the reception, Damien spent most of his time huddled with his business associates, while Evelyn stayed close to her father. "He hasn't said more than 10 words to you," Thomas observed, watching Damien across the room. "He will," Evelyn said confidently. "Tonight." The penthouse was even more impressive up close. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Everything was sleek, modern, and clearly expensive, but it felt more like a showroom than a home. "Your suite is this way," Damien said, leading her down a hallway. I had it prepared according to the preferences in your file. My file? Evelyn asked, keeping her voice soft and timid. I have files on everyone important to my business, he replied matter-of-factly. You'll find everything you need. We'll discuss the schedule for public appearances tomorrow. He opened a door to reveal a beautiful but impersonal bedroom suite. My room is at the other end of the penthouse. I prefer my privacy. Evelyn nodded meekly. Of course. I'll be in my study if you need anything essential. He turned to leave. Actually, she said quietly, there is one thing. Damien stopped and looked back at her, impatience clear in his expression. Yes? I believe it's customary for a husband and wife to share a drink on their wedding night, something that might have been surprise flickered across his face before. He controlled it. I suppose we could manage that. In the living room, Damien poured 2 glasses of expensive whiskey. He handed one to Evelyn, who was sitting stiffly on the edge of the sofa, her hands folded in her lap. To a successful partnership, he said, raising his glass. Evelyn took a small sip and tried not to wince at the strong taste. Is that all this is to you? A partnership? Damien sat in an armchair across from her, keeping his distance. I've always been straightforward, Evelyn. This arrangement benefits both our families. Your father gets financial security and the best medical care money can buy. I get the Sinclair patents. You get, he gestured around the penthouse, all of this. And what about love? She asked, still playing the role of the naive young woman. Damien actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. Love is a fairy tale people tell themselves to justify desire or convenience. I don't deal in fairy tales. I deal in reality. And the reality is that you didn't even try to know me before agreeing to this marriage. His eyes narrowed slightly. I know everything I need to know. Do you? Evelyn set down her glass and stood up. What exactly do you know about me, Damien? He took another sip of his whiskey, looking bored. You're Thomas Sinclair's only child, 28 years old, bachelor's degree in business administration. You've worked in various administrative positions at Sinclair Tech. You prefer classical music, read historical novels, and have no notable social life. He shrugged. You're exactly what I wanted in a wife. Undemanding. Evelyn nodded slowly. You've been very thorough with your file, but you missed some rather important details, such as, I don't have a degree in business administration. I have dual PhDs in computer engineering and quantum physics. I didn't work in administrative positions at my father's company. I led the research team that developed the very technology you're so eager to acquire. She stepped closer to him. And this is not who I really am. Damien frowned, confusion replacing his usual controlled expression. What are you talking about? Evelyn reached up and removed her glasses. Then she pulled the pins from her hair, letting it fall in soft waves around her shoulders. She reached for a tissue and wiped away the makeup she'd carefully applied to. So dull her complexion. This is who you married, Damien. He stared at her, his glass frozen halfway to his lips. The transformation was remarkable. Without the oversized glasses, her eyes were striking, large, bright, and intelligent. Her hair wasn't the mousy brown it had appeared, but a rich chestnut with golden highlights. Her features, no longer downplayed by unflattering makeup, were elegant and captivating. What is this? He finally managed to say. A test, she replied simply. And you failed. Damien set down his glass with deliberate care. You've been deceiving me. No more than you've been deceiving yourself. You wanted a wife who would disappear into the background, someone you could ignore and control. You never once looked past what you assumed to see who I really am. For the first time in years, Damien Wolfe was speechless. The woman standing before him bore little resemblance to the one he thought he had married, not just physically, but in the way she held herself, confident, assertive, challenging. Why the charade? He finally asked, his voice tight with anger. I agreed to this marriage for my father's sake, but I needed to know what kind of man you really are. Now I do. She walked toward the hallway that led to her room. Good night, husband. I'm sure you have a lot to think about. Damien watched her walk away, torn between fury at being manipulated and a grudging admiration for her cunning. One thing, was certain this was not the marriage he had planned. Over the next week, Damien rarely saw his new wife. She left the penthouse early each morning and returned late, offering no explanation for her absences. When he questioned her, she simply reminded him that their agreement didn't include accounting for her time. What infuriated him most was that he couldn't stop thinking about her. The real Evelyn Sinclair, or Evelyn Wolfe as she was now, was nothing like the woman in his file. She was brilliant, beautiful, and completely unintimidated by him. "You need to get control of this situation," his best friend and business partner Marcus Chen told him. Over lunch at their exclusive club. "I'm handling it," Damien insisted. "Are you? Because the merger documents still haven't been finalized, and rumor has it your new wife is still showing up at Sinclair Tech every day." Damien's jaw tightened. "She's working on a project." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A project? Or is she making sure certain proprietary information doesn't make its way to Wolfe Industries too quickly?" The thought had occurred to Damien as well. Had he underestimated her so completely? Was this whole marriage a scheme to delay the merger while Thomas Sinclair found another buyer? "I'm having dinner with her tonight," Damien said. "I'll clear things up." And when Damien arrived home that evening, he was surprised to find Evelyn in the kitchen cooking. "I didn't know you cooked," he said, setting down his briefcase. "There's a lot you don't know about me," she replied without looking up from the stove. "That was your choice." She was wearing a simple but elegant dress that accentuated her figure, her hair loose around her shoulders. Damien found himself staring again, still not quite reconciling this woman with the one he thought he had married. "We need to talk," he said. "Yes, we do. But let's eat first." She gestured to the dining table, which was already set. The meal was excellent, though Damien was too preoccupied to fully appreciate it. He waited until they were both finished before speaking. "The merger isn't proceeding as planned. Your father's company is dragging its feet on the final details." Evelyn took a sip of her wine. "My father's company is being cautious. It's what made Sinclair Tech successful. Is that what you're doing at the office every day?" "Being cautious," she smiled. "I'm ensuring that my father's legacy is protected. That was always part of our agreement." "Our agreement was a merger," Damien said, his temper rising. "A complete integration of Sinclair Tech into Wolfe Industries." "No, that was your expectation," Evelyn corrected him. "The actual agreement was a partnership that would preserve the Sinclair name and technologies." "Perhaps you should read the contract more carefully." Damien leaned forward. "What are you playing at, Evelyn?" "I'm not playing at anything. I'm protecting what's mine while honoring my commitments. The question is, what are you doing, Damien? Did you marry me for my father's company? Or did you marry my father's company and get stuck with me as an inconvenient attachment?" The directness of her question caught him off guard. "The marriage was a business decision," he said finally. "We both know that." "Yes, but now you're discovering that you didn't understand the business you were getting into." She stood and began clearing the dishes. "I'm not the silent partner you expected, Damien. If you want this merger to succeed, you'll need to work with me, not around me." As he watched her move around the kitchen with quiet confidence, Damien realized he was dealing with someone who might be every bit his equal. The thought was both unsettling and strangely exciting. "What do you want?" he asked. Evelyn turned to face him. "I want what I've always wanted, respect, not just for my father's company, but for me. If you can give me that, perhaps we can make this marriage work on more than just paper." For the first time, Damien truly looked at his wife, not as an obstacle or a means to an end, but as a person. What he saw both challenged and intrigued him. "I think we should start over," he said, surprising himself with the suggestion. A flicker of something, interest, perhaps even hope, passed across Evelyn's face. "That might be the first sensible thing you've said since we met." As they sat down to discuss the terms of their new understanding, neither of them noticed the blinking light on Damien's phone, a message from an unknown number that would soon threaten everything they were beginning to build. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse as Damien checked his phone again. The message that had come in last night was still there, taunting him. "You married the wrong Sinclair. Meet me at the Grand Hotel, room 5 and 12, 2 p.m. today, if you want to know the truth." He deleted it, determined to ignore what was clearly someone's attempt to cause trouble. The past week had been a careful dance between him and Evelyn as they established new boundaries in their unexpected relationship. "Good morning, Evelyn," said, walking into the kitchen in a tailored business suit that accentuated her figure. Gone was any trace of the meek woman he'd thought he married. "You're heading to the office?" Damien asked, pouring her a cup of coffee. She raised an eyebrow at the gesture, but accepted the cup. "Yes. The new security protocols for the quantum encryption need my approval. I could take you. I'm heading downtown for a meeting." Something that might have been suspicion flashed in her eyes. "That's not necessary. I have my car." Damien shrugged, trying to appear casual. Just trying to be accommodating. "That's a new look for you," she said with a small smile. "But I appreciate the effort." As she left, Damien found himself watching her with a mixture of admiration and frustration. Despite their agreement to start over, trust was in short supply between them. And now this mysterious message had him questioning everything again. 6 September at 2:05 p.m., against his better judgment, Damien stood outside room 512 at the Grand Hotel. His curiosity had gotten the better of him. He knocked sharply on the door. A woman in her early 30s opened it. She had the same hazel eyes as Evelyn, but her hair was blonde and cut in a sleek bob. "Mr. Wolfe, I wasn't sure you'd come." She stepped aside to let him enter. "I'm Victoria Sinclair." Damien entered cautiously. "Sinclair? Evelyn doesn't have any siblings." Victoria's laugh was cold. "That's what Thomas wanted everyone to believe. I'm his daughter from his first marriage, the marriage he likes to pretend never happened." Damien kept his expression neutral, though his mind was racing. "What do you want?" "To offer you a better deal." Victoria gestured to the documents spread across the hotel desk. "I know all about Sinclair Tech's proprietary algorithms. I worked there for years before Daddy Dearest decided his precious Evelyn should take my place. If you have information to sell, I'm not interested. Not even if it means getting the technology without having to stay married to a woman who deceived you." Victoria smiled when she saw his reaction. "Oh yes, I know all about her little transformation. Quite the actress, isn't she?" Damien's jaw tightened. "How do you know about that?" "I make it my business to know everything about the Sinclairs, including the fact that Evelyn isn't just protecting her father's company, she's sabotaging your merger." "You're lying." Victoria handed him a folder. "See for yourself. These are copies of communications between Evelyn and Miranda Zhang at Zhang Technologies, your biggest competitor. They've been meeting for weeks." Damien flipped through the papers, his stomach sinking as he recognized Evelyn's email address on several messages discussing alternative partnerships and better options for the Sinclair legacy. "This could be fabricated," he said, but doubt had already crept in. "Check the digital signatures, they're legitimate." Victoria moved closer. "I can give you everything you need to take control of Sinclair Tech without her interference. All I want is what should have been mine to begin with. Recognition as a Sinclair and a position in the company after the merger." Damien studied her face, looking for the lies. "Why come to me and not your father? Thomas Sinclair stopped listening to me years ago. He's blinded by his love for Evelyn." Her expression hardened. "But you're a businessman. You understand that sentiment has no place in business." He closed the folder. "I'll need to verify this information." "Of course, take your time." She handed him a business card. "But don't wait too long, Zhang Technologies won't." When Damien returned to the penthouse that evening, his mind was still reeling from Victoria's revelations. If what she said was true, Evelyn had been playing him from the beginning, not just with her appearance but with her intentions for the merger. He found her in the home office they now shared, working intently on her laptop. "Late meeting?" she asked without looking up. "Something like that." He poured himself a whiskey from the small bar in the corner. "How was your day?" "Productive." She finally glanced up at him. "Is something wrong? You seem tense." Damien took a seat across from her. "Do you know someone named Victoria Sinclair?" The color drained from Evelyn's face, but she quickly composed herself. "Where did you hear that name?" "She contacted me today." "Interesting woman. She had quite a lot to say about you and your father." Evelyn closed her laptop slowly. "Whatever." She told you it wasn't the whole truth, so you admit you know her. She's my half-sister from my father's first marriage. Evelyn's voice was tight. They've been estranged for years. She seems to think you stole her position at Sinclair Tech. I didn't steal anything. Evelyn stood up and walked to the window, her back to him. Victoria was brilliantly talented, but she became obsessed with quick results and cutting corners. She wanted to license our technology before it was secure. My father removed her when he discovered she was planning to sell proprietary information to competitors. Competitors like Zhang Technologies? Damien asked pointedly. Evelyn turned back to him, her eyes wide. What exactly did she tell you? That you've been meeting with Miranda Zhang, planning to sabotage our merger and take Sinclair Tech to a different partner. He tossed the folder onto the desk between them. Care to explain these? Evelyn looked at the emails, her expression shifting from shock to anger. These are partial conversations taken completely out of context. Yes, I met with Miranda Zhang as part of our standard competitive analysis. My father still runs Sinclair Tech, and it's my job to explore all options for the company's future. While being married to me? Our marriage doesn't give you ownership of my father's company. Her voice rose slightly. It creates an opportunity for partnership, not a blank check. That's not how business works, Evelyn. When companies merge, this isn't just business to me, she interrupted. This is my father's life's work, his legacy. I won't let anyone take that away from him. Not Victoria, not Zhang Technologies, and not you. The passion in her voice caught Damien off guard. For all his success, he'd never felt that kind of connection to his work. Wolf Industries was an achievement, not a legacy. Your sister offered me a way to get the technology without you. He said quietly. Fear flickered in Evelyn's eyes. And I'm still here asking for your side of the story. That should tell you something. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. Victoria has wanted control of Sinclair Tech since before. I even joined the company. She'll say anything, forge anything to get it. Evelyn moved closer to him. If you want to know what those meetings with Zhang were really about, I can show you the complete communications. Damien studied her face, looking for signs of deception. Why should I believe you over her? Because despite everything, I've never actually lied to you, Damien. I may have hidden who I really am, but that was to reveal the truth about you. She reached for his hand, surprising both of them. Give me a chance to prove it. The warmth of her touch sent an unexpected current through him. Against his better judgment, he found himself wanting to believe her. Show me everything, he said. Or the next morning, they were still in the office, empty coffee cups scattered around them as Evelyn walked Damien through. The complete correspondence with Zhang Technologies. So you were gathering intelligence, Damien said, rubbing his tired eyes. Yes. Miranda Zhang approached me after our wedding was announced. I took the meeting to find out what she knew about our plans. Evelyn pointed to one of the emails. She offered a partnership that would have kept the Sinclair name prominent, but I never seriously considered it. It was reconnaissance, nothing more. And these meetings you've been having at Sinclair Tech, the ones keeping the merger from moving forward? Evelyn hesitated. That's complicated. Damien's suspicion returned instantly. Complicated how? There's something I haven't told you about the technology my father developed. She took a deep breath. It's not just about encryption. We've created something revolutionary. A quantum computing method that could change everything from financial markets to national security. And you didn't think that was worth mentioning to your husband and business partner? My father made me promise to protect it. He doesn't trust anyone with the complete picture, not even you. She met his gaze directly. Especially after the way you approached our marriage. Damien couldn't argue with that. He had seen their marriage as nothing more than a transaction, a means to acquire Sinclair Tech's assets. So what now? He asked. Now I need to know if I can trust you, not just as a businessman, but as my husband. Evelyn looked exhausted but determined. Victoria will try again. She's never given up on taking control of my father's company, and she'll use our marriage to do it if she can. What do you need from me? Time and, she hesitated, support. Victoria knows how to manipulate people, especially men in positions of power. She'll try to turn you against me. The irony wasn't lost on Damien. A week ago, he would have jumped at Victoria's offer, a way to get what he wanted without the complication of Evelyn's demands for respect and partnership. But something had changed. "I'll talk to my legal team," he said. "We need to make sure Victoria can't interfere with the merger." Relief washed over Evelyn's face. "Thank you." As the sun rose over the city, casting long shadows across the penthouse, Damien realized they had spent the entire night together, talking, planning, working as a team. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't completely alone in his decisions. It was unsettling and strangely comforting at the same time. 2 days later, Damien found himself at St. Mary's Hospital, standing awkwardly in the doorway of Thomas Sinclair's private room. Evelyn sat beside her father's bed, holding his hand as a doctor checked his vitals. "The new medication is helping," the doctor was saying, "but we need to monitor the side effects carefully." Evelyn nodded, her focus entirely on her father. She hadn't noticed Damien's arrival. Thomas looked up and saw him. "Ah, my son-in-law has decided to visit. Come in, Damien." Evelyn turned, surprise evident on her face. "Damien, I didn't expect you." "I had a meeting nearby," he said, which wasn't entirely true. He had specifically arranged his schedule to be in this part of the city. "Thought I'd stop by." Thomas gestured to the chair on the other side of his bed. "Sit down. The doctor was just telling us I might live long enough to be a nuisance after all." The older man looked frailer than Damien remembered from the wedding, but his eyes were sharp and assessing. "Dad, don't talk like that," Evelyn scolded gently. "It's my health. I'll joke about it if I want to." Thomas turned his attention to Damien. "So how are you finding married life? My daughter giving you a run for your money yet?" Despite his condition, there was a mischievous glint in the older man's eye that told Damien he knew exactly what had transpired between them. "You could say that," Damien replied. "She's not what I expected," Thomas laughed, which turned into a concerning cough. "Of course she isn't. She's a Sinclair. We never do what's expected." The doctor finished his examination and excused himself, promising to return with the latest test results. "Evelyn, be a dear and find me some decent coffee," Thomas said once they were alone. "The stuff they serve here could strip paint." She looked between her father and Damien suspiciously. "You two aren't going to talk about me while I'm gone, are you?" "Absolutely we are," Thomas said cheerfully. "Now go on, take your time." Once Evelyn had left, Thomas's expression became serious. "Victoria came to see you, didn't she?" Damien wasn't surprised that Thomas knew. "Yes." "And she offered you a way to get what you want without dealing with Evelyn." "She did," Thomas studied him. "Yet you're still here, and from what I can see, you and my daughter haven't killed each other yet. That's progress. I'm not sure what Evelyn has told you about our arrangement." "Enough." Thomas adjusted himself in the bed, wincing slightly. "I know my daughter tested you, and I know you failed. I also know you're still trying to figure out why that bothers you so much." Damien wasn't used to being read so easily. It was disconcerting. "I married Evelyn for her connection to Sinclair Tech," he admitted. "It was a business decision." "Was it? Or was it the easy way out?" Thomas's gaze was uncomfortably perceptive. "A man like you could have acquired my company in a dozen different ways. Hostile takeover, competitive pressure, patent challenges. But you chose marriage. I've always wondered why." Damien shifted in his chair. "It was the most efficient solution." "Bullshit." Thomas smiled to soften the word. "You chose marriage because deep down you're tired of being alone. You just don't know how to be anything else." The words hit Damien like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to deny it, then closed it again. "My daughter is special," Thomas continued. "Not just because of her mind, though God knows she's brilliant. She sees people, really sees them. She saw past your armor to the man underneath. The question is, will you let yourself see her too?" "I'm trying," Damien said quietly. "Try harder." Thomas reached out and gripped Damien's arm with surprising strength. "Victoria will use any weakness she can find. She already tried to drive a wedge between you, and she won't stop there." "What exactly happened between you and Victoria?" Damien asked. "Evelyn said she was removed from the company for ethical reasons, but there seems to be more to it." Pain crossed Thomas's face. "Victoria is my daughter, and I failed her. Her mother and I divorced when she was young, and I wasn't present enough. By the time she came to work for me, There was too much resentment, too much hurt. She wanted to prove herself, to show me she was worthy of the Sinclair name, and she went too far. Thomas nodded. She made deals I couldn't support, took risks with technology that wasn't ready. When I confronted her, she accused me of favoring Evelyn, of never giving her a real chance. He looked away. Maybe she was right. And now she wants revenge. She wants what she believes is rightfully hers. Thomas looked back at Damien. The problem is she'll destroy everything to get it. Evelyn returned with coffee, her gaze moving between them suspiciously. Everything okay in here? Just getting to know my son-in-law better, Thomas said lightly, accepting the coffee. We've discovered we have something in common. What's that? Evelyn asked. Thomas smiled at Damien. We both care about you more than we're willing to admit. Damien met Evelyn's surprised gaze, and for once, he didn't look away. When so, they returned to the penthouse that evening. A tense silence hung between them. Damien could tell Evelyn wanted to ask what her father had said to him, but she was holding back. He's a remarkable man, your father, Damien said finally, pouring them both a glass of wine. Yes, he is. Evelyn accepted the glass, their fingers brushing briefly. Thank you for visiting him, it meant a lot. It wasn't entirely altruistic. I wanted to understand more about Victoria and the situation at Sinclair Tech. Evelyn's expression fell slightly. Of course, business first. Not just business. Damien surprised himself with the admission. I wanted to understand you better too. She looked up at him, clearly caught off guard. And do you? Understand me better? I'm beginning to. He took a seat beside her on the sofa, closer than he would have a week ago. Your father helped me see some things more clearly. Such as, Damien hesitated. Vulnerability had never come easily to him. That I may have chosen marriage for reasons beyond business. Evelyn set down her wineglass. What do you mean? I mean that perhaps I was... He searched for the right word. Lonely, though I wouldn't have admitted it even to myself. The admission hung between them, changing the air in the room. Evelyn's expression softened. And now, she asked quietly, now, I'm living with a woman who challenges everything I thought I wanted. He allowed himself a small smile. It's not unpleasant. Evelyn laughed, the sound warming something inside him. That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. I'm a work in progress, he admitted. She reached out and took his hand, intertwining their fingers. Aren't we all? As they sat there in comfortable silence, Damien's phone vibrated with a new message. He ignored it, choosing instead to focus on the feeling of Evelyn's hand in his. Whatever challenges Victoria might throw at them, they would face them together. But across town in her hotel room, Victoria Sinclair was making another call. This time to someone with even more power to disrupt Damien and Evelyn's fragile new beginning. Someone from Damien's past who had their own reasons for wanting to see him fail. Mr. Kingston, it's Victoria Sinclair. I believe we have a mutual interest in separating Damien Wolfe from his new bride. Mr. Wolfe, there's a Mr. Kingston here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. Damien looked up from his desk, his body tensing at the name. Kingston, are you sure? His assistant nodded. He's very insistent, sir. Send him in. Damien stood, buttoning his suit jacket and steeling himself. The door opened to reveal a man in his early 60s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that matched his silver hair. His smile didn't reach his cold grey eyes. Damien, my boy. It's been too long. His voice was smooth, cultured, with an undercurrent of threat that only Damien could detect. Richard Kingston, this is unexpected. Damien kept his tone neutral, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. What brings you to Wolfe Industries? Can't an old family friend pay a visit? Kingston sat down, crossing his legs casually. Especially when that friend hasn't received an invitation to your wedding. I had to read about it in the business section. Damien remained standing. We kept it small, just close family. Ah yes, the Sinclairs. Quite the catch marrying into that family. Kingston's smile widened. Though I hear Thomas's health is failing, Convenient timing for the merger. Is there a point to this visit, Richard? Damien asked, his patience wearing thin. Kingston's expression hardened. Your father would be disappointed, Damien. He built this company through strategic partnerships, not marriage. My father has been dead for 15 years. I run things my way now. Indeed, you do. Kingston opened his briefcase and removed a folder. Which is why I've decided to take a more active interest in Wolf Industries again. Damien's stomach tightened. What are you talking about? Kingston slid the folder across the desk. I've been quietly acquiring shares in your company. As of yesterday, I own 15%. Not enough for control, but enough to cause problems if I choose. Damien glanced at the documents, his mind racing. Why now? Let's just say a concerned party brought some interesting information to my attention. Information about the Sinclair quantum computing technology. Kingston leaned forward. Technology that could be worth billions in the right hands. Whose hands? Yours? I prefer to think of it as a family collaboration. Your father and I were partners once before you pushed me out. You were stealing from the company, Damien said coldly. My father may have been too blind to see it, but I wasn't. Kingston waved a dismissive hand. Ancient history. What matters now is the future. He stood up. Talk to your wife. Convince her to fast-track the merger and ensure I have access to the Sinclair patents. Otherwise, I'll call for a vote of no confidence at the next board meeting. You don't have that kind of influence, don't I? Kingston smiled again. Your marriage was supposed to strengthen Wolf Industries, but instead, it's been weeks with no progress. The board is getting nervous, Damien. They're wondering if you've lost your edge. After Kingston left, Damien sat heavily in his chair, his mind racing. The threat was real. Kingston had connections with several board members, particularly the old guard who had worked with Damien's father. If he turned them against him, he picked up his phone to call Evelyn, then hesitated. Kingston had specifically mentioned the quantum computing technology, information that wasn't public. There was only one way he could know about it: Victoria Sinclair. Evelyn was in the Sinclair Tech Lab, surrounded by computer screens and complex equipment, when her assistant interrupted. Ms. Wolf, there's a Richard Kingston here to see you. Evelyn frowned. Kingston? I don't know anyone by that name. He says he's a board member at Wolf Industries. Evelyn's suspicion immediately flared. Damien had never mentioned anyone named Kingston on his board. Tell him I'm in the middle of critical testing. He'll need to make an appointment. He was quite insistent. Said it concerns your husband and the merger. After a moment's hesitation, Evelyn nodded. Send him to my office. I'll be there in 5 minutes. When she arrived, Richard Kingston was examining the awards and patents displayed on her office wall. Impressive accomplishments for someone so young, he said without turning around. Thank you, Mr. Kingston. Now, how can I help you? My assistant mentioned you're from Wolf Industries, though strangely my husband has never mentioned you. Kingston turned, his smile calculated. Damien and I have a complicated history. I was his father's business partner many years ago. I see. And what brings you to Sinclair Tech? Evelyn remained standing, keeping the desk between them. I recently acquired a significant stake in Wolf Industries. Naturally, I'm concerned about the company's future, particularly this merger that seems to be proceeding at a glacial pace. Evelyn's expression remained composed, but her mind was working rapidly. The merger timeline was agreed upon by both parties. Quality work can't be rushed, especially with technology as sensitive as ours. Yes, your quantum computing breakthrough. Quite revolutionary, I hear. Evelyn stiffened. That information was highly classified. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. No need for pretense, Ms. Wolf. I have my sources. Kingston moved closer to the desk. I'm here to offer you an alternative, one that would benefit us both. I'm listening. Accelerate the merger, but with a modification. Structure it so the quantum computing patents are held by a separate entity, one controlled jointly by you and me, not Wolf Industries. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. And why would I do that? Because Damien Wolf married you for your company, not for you. Once he has what he wants, how long do you think the marriage will last? Kingston's voice dripped with false concern. I'm offering you protection, independence. That's very thoughtful, Evelyn said, her voice cool. But I think I'll discuss any changes to the merger with my husband first. Kingston's smile faded. I was told you were smarter than this, that you understood business. Who told you that? Victoria. The flicker of surprise in Kingston's eyes confirmed her suspicion. Thank you for stopping by, Mr. Kingston, but I have work to do. Evelyn moved toward the door. Any further discussions about the merger should include both my husband and my father. Kingston didn't move. You're making a mistake. Damien Wolf cares about one thing only, his company. He'll strip Sinclair Tech for parts and discard whatever doesn't serve his purpose, including you. Perhaps that was true when we married, Evelyn said, but people can change. People like Damien don't change. Kingston finally headed for the dot. When he betrays you, and he will, remember that I offered you a choice. As soon as Kingston left, Evelyn called Damien, but it went straight to voicemail. She sent a text, "We need to talk. Kingston was just here." Victoria Sinclair sat in the cafe across from Sinclair Tech, watching as Richard Kingston exited the building. Her phone rang. "Did she agree?" she asked without preamble. "No," Kingston replied. "Your sister is more loyal to Wolf than you thought," Victoria cursed. "And Damien, he's stubborn, but he's worried. The board pressure will push him to act soon. That's not good enough. We need to force their hand. Patience, my dear. The best victories take time." Kingston's voice was smooth. "I've planted the seeds of doubt. Now we wait for them to grow." "We don't have time," Victoria snapped. "My father could change his will any day. Once Evelyn has full control of his shares, we'll never get the company. Then perhaps it's time for more direct action, the kind that can't be traced back to us." Victoria smiled. "I'm listening." When Damien arrived home that evening, the penthouse was dark. "Evelyn?" He found her in the home office working on her laptop, surrounded by papers. "You didn't answer my call," she said without looking up. "I was in meetings all afternoon." He loosened his tie. "I see you met Richard Kingston." "Yes." "Charming man." Her voice was heavy with sarcasm. "He offered me a very interesting proposition." Damien poured himself a drink. "Let me guess. He wanted you to cut me out of the quantum computing technology." Evelyn finally looked up at him. "How did you know?" "Because he came to see me first. Threatened to turn the board against me if I didn't. Pressure you to fast-track the merger." Damien sat down across from her. "He's working with Victoria." "I figured that out." Evelyn pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture Damien had come to recognize as a sign of her frustration. "How dangerous is he?" "Very. Kingston was my father's partner until I discovered he was embezzling funds. Instead of pressing charges, my father let him resign quietly. It was a mistake." Damien took a sip of his whiskey. "Kingston has connections throughout the industry. And apparently he's been buying Wolf Industries shares. He mentioned that 15% for now. If he can convince other shareholders to side with him..." Evelyn closed her laptop. "So what do we do?" The "we" didn't escape Damien's notice. A week ago she would have said, "you." "We need to accelerate our timeline, but not the way Kingston wants. He's right about one thing, the board is getting nervous. If we can show progress on the merger, it will strengthen my position." "And what about the quantum computing technology?" "That's what they're really after. We protect it," Damien said firmly. "Your father's legacy stays intact." Evelyn studied him, looking for any sign of deception. "Why the change of heart? When we first married, you wanted complete control of Sinclair Tech." Damien met her gaze directly. "When we first married, I didn't know you." The simple statement hung between them, loaded with meaning. Evelyn's expression softened. "I need to show you something," she said, standing up. "Get your coat." Tower, the Sinclair Tech building, was nearly empty at this hour. Just a few security guards and late-working scientists. Evelyn led Damien to a secure elevator that required both a key card and retinal scan. "Where are we going?" he asked as they descended. "To the heart of my father's company." The elevator stopped deep underground, and the reason Victoria and Kingston are so desperate to get control. They stepped out into a temperature-controlled room filled with what looked like large glass cases, each housing a complex array of circuitry and pulsing lights. This is Project Quantum, Evelyn said, her voice filled with pride. The world's first stable quantum computing network. Damien walked slowly around the room, taking in the technology that was years ahead of anything he'd seen before. This is what your father developed? We developed it together. She moved to a central console. It's more than just faster computing. It's a completely new approach to processing information. With this, we could revolutionize everything from medicine to space exploration. And make billions in the process, Damien added. Evelyn nodded. That's why we've kept it secret. Once this goes public, every tech company and government agency in the world will be after it, including Kingston. Damien turned to her. Why show me this now? Because you need to understand what we're fighting for. She took his hand. And because I want to trust you, Damien, completely. The gesture struck him deeply. Trust had never been part of his business model, or his personal life for that matter, yet here was this woman he had married for all the wrong reasons, offering him something priceless. I won't let Kingston or Victoria get their hands on this, he promised. We'll protect it together. Evelyn's smile was warm. That sounds suspiciously like a partnership. Maybe it is. He squeezed her hand. A real one this time. The moment was interrupted by Evelyn's phone ringing. Her expression changed to concern as she answered. Yes, Dr. Freeman, what? When? We'll be right there. She hung up, her face pale. It's my father. He's had a setback. We need to go to the hospital. The hospital corridor was bright and sterile, the antiseptic smell overwhelming. Evelyn paced outside her father's room while doctors worked inside. He was doing so well yesterday, she said, her voice breaking. The new treatment was working. Damien stood nearby, unsure how to comfort her. Physical affection didn't come naturally to him, but he found himself reaching for her hand anyway. Your father is strong. He'll pull through. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face with surprise. Thank you for being here. Dr. Freeman emerged from the room, his expression grave. Mrs. Wolfe, your father is stable for now, but I'm concerned about the sudden deterioration. We've run some preliminary tests, and there are unusual markers in his bloodstream. What kind of markers? Evelyn asked. Compounds that shouldn't be there. We're running more specific tests, but... He hesitated. But what, doctor? Damien pressed. It almost looks like an intentional overdose of his medication. The timing and concentration suggest it wasn't accidental. Evelyn gasped. Are you saying someone tried to harm my father? I'm saying we need to be careful. I've ordered a new protocol for his care. Only staff on an approved list can administer medication, and we've moved him to a more secure room. After the doctor left, Evelyn turned to Damien, her eyes wide with fear and anger. Victoria, it has to be her. Damien's mind was already racing through the possibilities. We don't have proof. I don't need proof. She's always resented him. And now with the company at stake... Evelyn stopped abruptly. The company. If my father dies before the merger is complete, his controlling shares would go to you, Damien finished. Which doesn't help Victoria. Unless I'm not in the picture either. The realization hit her hard. Damien, if something happens to both of us, who would control Sinclair Tech? It was a chilling question. We need to talk to your father's lawyers, and we need security, both personal and for the quantum computing facility. Evelyn nodded, her practical nature reasserting itself despite her worry. I'll call our head of security, and we should stay at a hotel tonight, not the penthouse. Damien was impressed by her quick thinking. I'll make the arrangements. But first, let's check on your father. Thomas Sinclair was pale against the white hospital sheets, but his eyes were alert when they entered. Quite a commotion I've caused, he said weakly. Evelyn rushed to his side. Dad, the doctor says someone may have tampered with your medication. Thomas didn't look surprised. Victoria's getting desperate. You think it was her too? Damien asked. Who else would benefit from my untimely departure? Thomas coughed. She came to see me yesterday, wanted to talk about reconciliation. I should have known better. We're increasing security, Evelyn said. No one will get to you again. Thomas reached for her hand. It's not me I'm worried about. If I'm gone, you become the target. We've thought of that, Damien said. We're taking precautions. Thomas studied him with newfound respect. Good. You're thinking like a husband now, not just a businessman. The comment caught Damien off guard. Was that what he was doing? The fierce protectiveness he felt toward Evelyn had crept up on him, evolving from business self-interest to something much more personal. "I need you both to promise me something," Thomas said, his voice growing stronger with urgency. "If anything happens to me, protect the technology. Don't let it fall into the wrong hands." "Nothing's going to happen to you," Evelyn insisted. "Promise me," her father repeated. "We promise," Damien said firmly. "Your legacy is safe with us." Thomas seemed satisfied with that. "Now go. I need rest, and you two need to prepare." Victoria won't stop with this failed attempt. The luxury hotel suite Damien arranged had a separate security entrance and was registered under a false name. As an extra precaution, he had his most trusted security team sweep the rooms for surveillance devices. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, physically and emotionally exhausted. "I can't believe she would go this far. Trying to kill our father?" Damien sat beside her, closer than he would have just weeks ago. "People will do desperate things when millions are at stake. It's not about the money for Victoria. It's about recognition. She wants to prove she's a true Sinclair." Evelyn looked up at him. "What about Kingston? How far will he go?" "Kingston is calculating. He prefers manipulation to direct action, but he's dangerous in his own way." Damien hesitated. "There's something else we need to consider." "What?" "If Victoria and Kingston are working together, they may already know about our visit to the quantum computing facility. We need to secure it immediately." Evelyn grabbed her phone. "I'll call the lab director." While she made the call, Damien contacted Marcus, his most trusted executive. "I need you to gather information on Richard Kingston's recent activities, especially any contact with Victoria Sinclair." When they had both finished their calls, an awkward silence fell. The suite had only one bedroom, an oversight, or perhaps assumption, on Damien's part. "I can sleep on the sofa," he offered. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. "That's not necessary. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." "Damien," she said softly, "we're married, and after everything that's happened today, I think I'd feel safer with you nearby." The admission surprised him. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering, she reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his cheek. "When did this happen? When did you start caring?" He could have deflected, could have framed it as business interest or obligation, but looking into her eyes, Damien found himself unwilling to hide behind those excuses. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "It happened gradually, and then all at once." She smiled at his honesty. "That's not very businesslike of you." "No, it's not." He covered her hand with his own. "Evelyn, His phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Marcus. "What did you find?" Damien asked, stepping away reluctantly. "Bad news. There was a security breach at Sinclair Tech 10 minutes ago. Someone accessed the lower levels." Damien felt his blood run cold. "The quantum lab?" "Yes." Security cameras were disabled, but a silent alarm was triggered. Local police are on their way. Evelyn was already on her feet, having heard his side of the conversation. "We need to get there now." As they rushed to the door, Damien's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. He opened it to find a photo of the quantum computing lab, with Victoria Sinclair standing beside one of the main servers, smiling triumphantly. The message read, "Too late, brother-in-law. Tick-tock." And the Sinclair Tech building was surrounded by police cars, their lights flashing in the night. Evelyn and Damien pushed past the security perimeter, flashing their IDs. "What happened?" Evelyn demanded of the head of security. "Professional job," the man replied grimly. "They knew exactly when to hit and exactly where to go. The quantum lab was the only target." "Damage?" Damien asked. "That's the strange part. Nothing was taken as far as we can tell, but several of the servers were accessed." Evelyn rushed to the elevator, Damien close behind. When they reached the lab, a team of technicians was already working feverishly. "Status report," Evelyn called out. The lead scientist looked up, his face grim. Someone uploaded something to the main system. It's some kind of virus or backdoor program. We've isolated it, but it's already replicated throughout the network. Can you remove it? We're trying, but it's sophisticated. It seems designed to allow remote access to the entire quantum system. Damien showed Evelyn the photo on his phone. Victoria wanted us to know it was her. But why? What's her endgame? Evelyn moved to one of the terminals and began typing rapidly. If she can access the quantum network remotely, she could steal the technology, Damien finished, or worse. Evelyn's fingers flew over the keyboard. She could corrupt it, destroy years of work. As they worked with the team to contain the damage, Damien received another call, this time from Richard Kingston. "I assume you've discovered our little gift by now," Kingston said smugly. "What do you want, Kingston?" "The same thing I've always wanted. A seat at the table. Control of the technology that should have been partly mine if you hadn't pushed me. Out of Wolf Industries." "This won't work," Damien said. "We'll neutralize whatever you've done." "Perhaps. But can you do it before the virus corrupts your precious quantum network?" Victoria was very specific about its capabilities. "Name your terms," Damien said, his voice cold. "Now you're being sensible. Transfer 20% of Wolf Industries shares to me by noon tomorrow, and give Victoria a controlling interest in Sinclair Tech's quantum division. And if we refuse, then by this time tomorrow, the most revolutionary technology of our generation will be nothing but useless hardware." "Your choice, Damien." The call ended, leaving Damien staring at his phone. "What did he say?" Evelyn asked, seeing his expression. "They're threatening to destroy the quantum network unless we give them what they want." He explained Kingston's demands. "We can't let them win," Evelyn said firmly. "There has to be another way." Damien looked around the lab at the technology that represented years of innovation and Thomas Sinclair's legacy. Then he looked at Evelyn, brilliant, determined, and now so important to him in ways he hadn't anticipated. "There is another way," he said slowly, "but it's risky." "I'm listening." "We give them exactly what they expect. We make them think they've won." Damien pulled her away from the others, lowering his voice. "And then we spring a trap they won't see coming." As they huddled together, forming a plan that would require perfect timing and complete trust, Damien realized how much had changed. This was no longer about a business merger or a convenient marriage. It was about protecting something they both believed in, and perhaps about protecting the unexpected bond that had grown between them. Across town, Victoria Sinclair and Richard Kingston celebrated their apparent victory, unaware that they had finally done what no one else had managed to do. They had united Damien and Evelyn Wolf in a common purpose that transcended business. And in his hospital room, Thomas Sinclair received an unexpected visitor, one whose arrival would change everything, just as the final confrontation was about to begin. Morning light filtered through the windows of the hotel suite as Damien and Evelyn finalized their plan. They had worked through the night, fueled by determination and strong coffee. "Are you sure this will work?" Evelyn asked, running a hand through her disheveled hair. "No," Damien admitted, "but it's our best option." Their plan was risky. They would appear to give Kingston and Victoria what they wanted, access to the quantum technology and shares in Wolf Industries, but with a hidden trap that would expose their illegal activities and render the stolen technology useless. "I've spoken with the FBI's cybercrime division," Damien said, checking his phone. "They're on standby, but they need concrete evidence of Kingston's involvement, and we'll give it to them." Evelyn looked at her watch. "We need to get to the hospital first. Check on my father." Damien nodded, then hesitated. "Evelyn, before we do this, I need you to know something." She looked up at him, her expression softening. "What is it?" "If things go wrong today." He struggled to find the right words, emotions he wasn't used to expressing. "I want you to know that this marriage has become more than a business arrangement for me." Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. "Damien Wolf, are you trying to tell me you have feelings for me?" A smile tugged at his lips. "I'm saying that whatever happens, I don't regret marrying you, even if it wasn't for the right reasons at first." Evelyn stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. "For a man who makes billion-dollar deals without blinking, You're surprisingly bad at saying what you feel. I'm working on it, he said, covering her hand with his. She reached up and kissed him softly, their first real kiss since their wedding day. When she pulled away, there was determination in her eyes. Then, let's make sure we both survive this day. I'd like to see what kind of husband you might become. Fastened down at St. Mary's Hospital, they found Thomas Sinclair's room guarded by 2 security officers. Inside, Thomas was sitting up in bed, looking stronger than the day before, and he wasn't alone. A woman in her 50s with elegant silver-streaked dark hair sat beside him. "Mom?" Evelyn stopped short, surprise evident on her face. "Eleanor." Sinclair stood and embraced her daughter. "I came as soon as I heard about your father's accident." "How did you know?" Evelyn asked. "You're supposed to be in Europe." "I got a call," Eleanor glanced at Thomas, "from a concerned party." Thomas looked sheepish. "I might have reached out to your mother after the incident. With everything happening, I thought we needed all hands on deck." Damien watched this family reunion with interest. He knew that Eleanor Sinclair had divorced Thomas years ago and had been living abroad, maintaining only minimal contact with her ex-husband while staying close to Evelyn. "Mrs. Sinclair," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Damien Wolfe." "Yes, my daughter's husband." Eleanor's assessment was as sharp as her daughter's. "Thomas has filled me in on the unusual circumstances of your marriage." "Mom, please," Evelyn interjected. "It's complicated. I can see that." Eleanor's gaze moved between them knowingly. "It appears things have evolved since the wedding." Thomas cleared his throat. "Eleanor isn't just here for moral support. She used to be Sinclair Tech's head of security before we divorced. She knows the quantum project inside and out. And I know Victoria," Eleanor added, her expression hardening. "She was always troubled, but I never thought she'd go this far." "We have a plan," Evelyn said, "but we could use your help." As they outlined their strategy, Eleanor listened carefully, occasionally suggesting improvements. Her expertise in security systems provided a perspective they hadn't considered. "It could work," she said when they finished, "but you're underestimating Victoria's desperation. She won't stop, even if this plan succeeds." "What do you suggest?" Damien asked. Eleanor's smile was calculating. "I think it's time for a mother-daughter reunion." Come at precisely 11:30 a.m. Damien entered the executive conference room at Wolfe Industries, where Richard Kingston was waiting, looking supremely confident. "Right on time," Kingston said. "I assume you have the transfer documents." "Ready?" "I do." Damien placed a folder on the table. 20% of Wolfe Industries as demanded. Kingston opened the folder, examining the legal documents with satisfaction. Smart decision. And the Sinclair quantum technology. "Evelyn is handling that part. Victoria should be receiving access codes as we speak." "Excellent." Kingston signed the share transfer with a flourish. "I knew you'd see reason eventually." "It wasn't reason," Damien said coldly. "It was necessity. You've backed me into a corner." "That's business, my boy. Your father understood that. My father trusted the wrong people." Damien's phone buzzed. He checked it and nodded. "Evelyn confirms the access has been granted." Kingston's smile widened. "Then our business is concluded. Don't worry, Damien. We'll be benevolent partners in your company." "I'm sure you will be," Damien replied, his expression unreadable. "Would you like a drink to celebrate? I have a bottle of the Macallan 1926. My father was saving for a special occasion. Pride and sentimentality, Kingston's weaknesses. Your father had excellent taste. I'd be honored." Damien poured 2 glasses of the amber liquid. 2 new partnerships. They clinked glasses and Kingston took a generous sip. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to call Victoria and confirm everything's proceeding as planned." "Of course," Damien watched him step away to make the call, then checked his own phone. A text from Marcus. "FBI team in position." Everything was going according to plan. Across town at Sinclair Tech, Evelyn met Victoria in the main lobby. Her half-sister was dressed impeccably in a designer suit, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile victorious. "I knew you'd make the right choice," Victoria said. "The access codes work perfectly." "You didn't leave me much choice," Evelyn replied. "The virus you planted would have destroyed years of work. Collateral damage. Sometimes it's necessary to get what you want. Victoria followed Evelyn to the elevator. I've always admired that about you, actually. Your dedication to the work. If only you'd been willing to share the spotlight. Is that what this was about? The spotlight? Victoria's smile faltered slightly. It was about recognition. Dad always saw you as the golden child, the true heir to his legacy. I was just the mistake from his first marriage. As they descended to the quantum lab, Evelyn studied her half-sister. He didn't see you that way, Victoria. He was proud of your abilities. He just couldn't condone your methods. Spare me the family therapy. The elevator doors opened to the secure lab. Show me what I've won. The lab was quiet, with only a skeleton crew of technicians who nodded nervously as Evelyn led Victoria to the main control room. The system is online, Evelyn said, typing commands into the central terminal. I've granted you administrator access as agreed. Victoria moved to the terminal, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she explored the system. It's even more advanced than I thought. The market applications are endless. Yes, Evelyn agreed. That's why Dad was so protective of it. Too protective. This technology belongs in the world, not locked away in his private vault. Victoria opened a communications channel. Richard, I'm in. The system is everything we hoped for. Kingston's voice came through clearly. Excellent. The share transfer is complete on this end. Initiate the data transfer as planned. Victoria began the process of copying the quantum system's core algorithms to an external server. Soon we'll have complete control. With both Wolf Industries shares and this technology, we'll be unstoppable. You seem very confident for someone who just committed multiple federal crimes, came a new voice from the doorway. Victoria turned to see Eleanor Sinclair standing there, looking every inch the formidable security expert she once was. Mother, Victoria said, her voice suddenly tense. This is a surprise, is it? Did you think you could try to kill your father and I wouldn't come? Eleanor moved into the room with deliberate steps. Did you think I would stand by while you destroyed everything he built? Victoria's fingers paused over the keyboard. I never meant to harm him. I just needed him incapacitated until you could steal his life's work. Eleanor's voice was sharp. Don't lie to me, Victoria. I taught you better than that. How you taught me nothing, Victoria snapped. You left when I was 12 years old. You abandoned me and took your precious Evelyn with you whenever possible. I left your father, not you, Eleanor said, her voice softening slightly. You chose to stay with him. You chose to see me as the enemy. Victoria's laugh was bitter. And now you're here to stop me, with your perfect daughter at your side. How fitting. I'm here to give you a choice, Eleanor said. Stop the data transfer now and we can work this out as a family. It's too late for that. Victoria turned back to the terminal, fingers resuming their work. The transfer is already at 50%. Soon the quantum technology will belong to Kingston and me, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Eleanor looked at Evelyn and nodded slightly. Actually, Evelyn said, moving to another terminal, there is. She entered a series of commands and suddenly the screens throughout the lab flashed red. What are you doing? Victoria demanded, trying to override the command. Triggering the failsafe we built into the system, Evelyn explained calmly. The access codes we gave you activated a tracking protocol. Every move you've made has been recorded and transmitted to the FBI's cybercrime division. You're bluffing. She's not, said a new voice as Damien entered the lab, accompanied by several FBI agents. It's over, Victoria. The same trap was set. For Kingston. He's being arrested as we speak. Victoria looked frantically from Evelyn to Damien to Eleanor. You planned this. We protected what was ours, Damien said, just as you tried to take what wasn't yours. The FBI agents moved forward, and one read Victoria her rights as they took her into custody. As they led her away, she looked back at Evelyn with a mixture of hatred and respect. You're more like me than you want to admit, she called out. Remember that, sister. When she was gone, Eleanor placed a hand on Evelyn's shoulder. Are you all right? Evelyn nodded, tears in her eyes. I just wish it hadn't come to this. Some people choose their own paths, her mother said softly. Victoria made her choice long ago. Damien moved to Evelyn's side, taking her hand. The FBI found evidence on Kingston's laptop linking him to the attempt on your father's life. They're both going away for a long time. Evelyn leaned against him, suddenly exhausted. It's really over? Yes, he said, wrapping an arm around her. It's over. 1 week later, Thomas Sinclair's hospital room was filled with flowers and sunlight. His recovery had been remarkably swift once the correct treatment was administered, and the stress of Victoria's threats was removed. The doctor says I can go home tomorrow, he announced as Damien and Evelyn visited, though your mother insists on staying to supervise my recovery. Eleanor, who was arranging flowers by the window, smiled. Someone has to make sure you follow medical advice for once in your life, Thomas. The easy banter between them suggested a warming in their long, cold relationship. The merger paperwork is ready, Damien said, setting a folder on Thomas's bed. With the modifications we discussed. Thomas opened it, scanning the documents with approval. Sinclair Wolf Technologies, a true partnership. With the quantum computing division as a separate entity under joint family control, Evelyn added, no single person will have complete authority. Smart, her father said. And the board restructuring? Already underway, Damien replied. After Kingston's arrest, the old guard has been remarkably cooperative. Thomas signed the documents with a flourish. Then it's done. Our companies are officially joined. Just like our children, Eleanor added, with a knowing smile. Evelyn rolled her eyes. Mom, please. What, I'm just stating facts. You are married, after all. She looked between them. Though from what I've observed, the nature of that marriage seems to have evolved considerably. Damien cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the personal direction of the conversation. The FBI has frozen all of Kingston's assets. The shares he thought he had acquired have been returned to Wolf Industries. And Victoria? Thomas asked quietly. She's cooperating with authorities, Evelyn said. Her testimony against Kingston will likely reduce her sentence. I should visit her, Thomas said, surprising everyone. She's still my daughter despite everything. Eleanor moved to his side. We both should. We failed her in many ways. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of family history hanging in the air. Well, Thomas said finally, I think you two have business to attend to. The official press announcement of the merger is tomorrow, isn't it? Yes, Damien confirmed. We should get going. As they left the hospital, walking toward Damien's car, Evelyn seemed lost in thought. What is it? He asked. I was just thinking about family, how complicated it can be. She looked up at him. My parents might actually reconcile after 30 years apart. Who would have thought? People can surprise you, Damien said, opening the car door for her. I've discovered that recently. Once they were both inside the car, he didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, he turned to face her. Evelyn, there's something I need to ask you. She raised an eyebrow. That sounds serious. It is. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Our marriage started as a business arrangement, but it's become something else entirely. Evelyn's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. I find myself thinking about you all the time, he continued. Your brilliance, your strength, the way you see through my defenses. I've never felt this way about anyone before. He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring, far more personal and beautiful than the practical one they had used for their courthouse wedding. I'd like to start over, he said. Not as a businessman and his convenient wife, but as a man who has fallen in love with an extraordinary woman. His voice was steady, but his eyes revealed his vulnerability. Would you marry me again, Evelyn? This time for the right reasons? Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the ring, then at him. You know, when I agreed to this marriage, I never expected to find someone who would see the real me and value it. She reached out to touch his face, let alone someone I could love in return. Is that a yes? He asked, his heart pounding. Yes, she said simply. I would be honored to marry you again, Damien Wolf. He slipped the ring onto her finger, beside the plain band she already wore, and pulled her into a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. 3 months later, The gardens of the Sinclair estate were transformed by hundreds of white roses and twinkling lights. Guests mingled on the lawn, executives from both Sinclair and Wolf companies, alongside family friends. In Tidisari, a room overlooking the garden, Evelyn stood in her wedding gown, a far cry from the simple dress she'd worn at the courthouse. This gown was a masterpiece of silk and lace that accentuated her natural beauty. Eleanor helped adjust her veil. "You look stunning, darling." "Thanks, Mom." Evelyn took a deep breath. "I'm surprisingly nervous, considering I'm already married to the man." "That was a contract," her mother said wisely. "This is a commitment. Very different things." A knock at the door revealed Thomas, looking healthier than he had in years. "It's time, sweetheart." He offered his arm, and Evelyn took it, emotion welling in her throat. "How are you feeling, Dad?" "Better than I have in decades," he said, glancing back at Eleanor. "Your mother moving back into the house has been good for my recovery." "Just your recovery?" Evelyn teased. Thomas smiled. "Perhaps more than that. We're taking it one day at a time." As they made their way downstairs, Evelyn asked the question that had been on her mind. "Did you visit Victoria?" Her father nodded. "Twice now. She's angry, hurt, but underneath that I think she's relieved to finally have everything in the open. Do you think she'll ever change?" "People can surprise you," Thomas said, echoing Damien's words. "She's agreed to therapy as part of her plea deal. It's a start." The music changed, signaling it was time. As they stepped into the garden, Evelyn saw Damien waiting at the altar, looking more handsome than ever in his tuxedo. But what struck her most was his expression. Open, vulnerable, filled with love. Nothing like the cold businessman who had married her for convenience months ago. As she walked toward him, Evelyn reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. A business arrangement that had transformed into true love, a test that had failed, but ultimately succeeded beyond her wildest expectations. When she reached the altar, Thomas placed her hand in Damien's, and this time when their eyes met, there were no secrets between them, no masks to remove. "You look beautiful," Damien whispered. "The real you." Evelyn smiled. "And you look like a man in love." "I am," he said simply, "with my wife." As they exchanged vows, real vows this time, filled with meaning and promise, the gathered witnesses saw what Evelyn and Damien already knew. Sometimes the most unexpected beginnings could lead to the most perfect endings, and as they sealed their renewed commitment with a kiss, applause erupted around them, not for the merger of two powerful companies, but for the union of two hearts that had found each other despite all odds. In the back of the crowd, Marcus leaned toward Eleanor and whispered, "Who would have thought? Damien Wolf, married for love." Eleanor smiled knowingly. Sometimes people just need to see past appearances to discover what's truly valuable. Damien and Evelyn made their way back down the aisle as husband and wife, not for convenience, not for business, but for the most powerful merger of all. Rui statut the end.